Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. And there is request to all the participants. They have to mute their mic. Mute करून टाका. कुणी चालू ठेवू नका. सर, अपने वकील साहब ज्वाइन हो गए सर?
सर मेरा आवाज आ रहा है उधर?
हाँ सर.
हॅलो
सर. हाँ सर, जॉईन झाले सर तुम्ही? झाले.
झालो ना?
ओके सर, ओके. झाले. काय हरकत नाही.
अक्षय
सर तुमचा व्हिडिओ चालू करा सर.
हाँ ठीक है.
व्हिडिओ चालू करा सर.
बरोबर आहे ना?
व्हिडिओ ऑन झाला.
येस. ओके. बस जमतंय सर. आम्ही दिसतोय सर तुम्हाला?
यस.
ओके. आवाजामध्ये काही प्रॉब्लेम नाही आहे ना सर?
नाही.
Okay, sir. Once again, good morning to you, and I welcome on behalf of Sri Shivaji Law College, Parbhani, for this nice lecture of yours with regard to law of rates provided under the Constitution of India. Honorable Advocate, sir, we'll wait for a couple of minutes. We'll allow the students to join, and as soon as they are going to join, we'll start within a couple of minutes.
Okay, sir.
अविनाश, तुमचा ऑडिओ बंद करा. All the participants other than the speaker, they are kindly requested to mute their microphone. वीर सर, तुमचा आवाज म्यूट झालाय बघा सर. केलाय का तुम्ही?
हाँ सर, मी मुद्दाम केला.
ओके. काय हरकत नाही सर, काय हरकत नाही. Meanwhile, the notice is for all the participant students. You are requested to register your names in the chat box. तुम्ही तुमचे चॅट बॉक्स मध्ये तुमचं नाव, तुमचा वर्ग आणि तुमचा रोल नंबर रजिस्टर करायचा आहे. कशासाठी? चॅट बॉक्स मध्ये. तर अपूर्वा, जे तुमचं नाव लिहिलं तर तुम्ही क्लास आणि तुमचा रोल नंबर सुद्धा त्याच्यामध्ये ऍड करा. एका नाव, रोल नंबर आधी, नंतर नाव आणि तुमचा क्लास शेवटी. अशा पद्धतीने जर केलं तर एकाच म्हणजे तुमच्या मेसेज मध्ये तुमची अटेंडन्स रेकॉर्ड होईल. ठीक आहे? क्लास, your roll number, your name and your class, that is expected to be posted on the chat box. सगळ्यांना विनंती आहे तशी. आणि दुसरी अशी रिक्वेस्ट आहे की when you will be having at the end of the session, we will be having a question answer, a kind of a session, and you can post your questions directly in the chat box. त्यावेळेला तुम्ही चॅट बॉक्स मध्ये टाका, तर आपण त्या पद्धतीने त्याचे प्रश्न सुद्धा घेऊया. आणि सगळ्यांना विनंती आहे की सगळ्यांनी म्यूट करा. हा बोला, कोण बोलतोय?
हॅलो सर. सर माझ्याकडे रोल नंबर नाही आहे.
रोल नंबर नाही,
कैलास
नाव
प्रकाश
टाकायचं
बर्गे.
बेटा. ठीक आहे, ठीक आहे. फर्स्ट इयरच्या लोकांना
Yes, sir, yes.
रोल नंबर नाही, नाव तर टाका. नाव आणि क्लास टाका. बाकी आवाज कैलासराव बंद करून टाका. ठीक आहे. Doesn't matter. Your name and at least the class, it is expected to be posted on the chat box, in the chat box. Dr. Wasim sir, I think
Yes, sir.
around 66 participants are there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Honorable Advocate Veer sir, are you ready for the startup session, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir. You are kindly requested to put on the video so that you are visible to all of us. Once again, I myself, Dr. Vijay Makanikar, Assistant Professor in Law, Sri Shivaji Law College, Parbhani, welcome all the participants of today's webinar. We are right now having Honorable Advocate Shrikant Veer sir, who is practicing law at Bombay High Court bench at Aurangabad. So he is the resource person for us today. We are also having our beloved principal sir, Dr. V.M. More, and I request him to accept the presidential chair of today's webinar. Actually, sir will be joining in middle, and he has asked the coordinator, I am being a coordinator, to continue the program. In between he will join, and he is expecting that much of the time should be given to the resource person. So he will not be speaking today. He will be only a participant in this. But still, as a formality, I request him to accept the chair of the president of today's program. Once again, I welcome on behalf of Sri Shivaji Law College, Parbhani, and the reason why we have gathered here is the online webinar on the topic law of rights provided under the Constitution of India. My dear friends, we know the Constitution of India is a fundamental text. So the rights enumerated under the Fundament of Land, that is as well. When we say these are the fundamental rights, at the same time, the Constitution under the Part 3 provides and lists the different rights, including right to remedy. So whenever there is right, there has to be remedy. And to make these rights meaningful, there are certain rights that have been provided under the Constitution. So whenever it is the duty upon the state to ensure the rights, fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution of the citizens or the person, the human beings. And if there is any kind of a breach of this duty on the part of the state, the victim, the person whose right has been violated, can approach the court. So the right to approach the court has been provided under the Constitution itself. Then how this right has to be exercised, there are certain technicalities. And in that connection, we thought it will be better to invite a resource person like Advocate Veer sir, who is expert in the Constitution law and particularly practicing in the high courts, where there is always a debate of human rights rather the fundamental rights. Once again, I welcome him on this webinar. And before going to start the kind of a webinar, I welcome all the participants as well. These dear students, you are once again requested that you have to post your name as well as class, roll number if possible, in the chat box so that we can record our attendance. We are about to reach the capacity of 100. We are right now 94 kind of a participant, 95. So all the participants, they are kindly requested to mute their microphones so that we will be able to listen to Honorable Lawyer, Advocate Veer sir. So the topic we have chosen, basically, this has been, Honorable Sir, this has been the tradition of this institution to invite the resource person from diverse fields of law as well as other branches of studies. The reason is that to provide the exposure of the students to such dynamic kind of personalities. If they are provided a kind of exposure, they will learn what practically is happening in the court of law. Apart from the classroom teaching, we are regularly arranging such kind of a. So once again, I request the participant to mute. Sir, किसने mute नहीं किया वो देखिए उनको, नहीं तो फिर उनको remove करना पड़ेगा हमको.
सर मैं देख रहा हूँ सर, मैं देख रहा हूँ.
प्लीज प्लीज, हाँ, क्योंकि हम रिसोर्स पर्सन को सुनने को आए हैं.
ओके
ओके, प्लीज प्लीज. So the reason is when the practicing of law is another thing, and what we can say, what we are having in the constitution, that is one thing. And therefore, it is necessary for the students to get an exposure to such the knowledge of the practicing lawyer. For that purpose, we have chosen the topic which is very close to the heart of Advocate Veer sir, that is law of writs provided under the Constitution of India. So once again, I request him to accept the chair as a resource person. So now the question comes, what kind of the resource person is? And in that connection, I'm going to introduce him in a brief. Advocate Srikant Tatasaheb Veer is a lawyer who is practicing at High Court, Bombay High Court bench at Aurangabad. He is practicing law as an advocate with Honorable High Court of Judicature, Bombay at Aurangabad since 2003. So he is having literally experience of 2 decades, that is around 20 years, that is 17 plus years. He has worked at the said Honorable High Court for the civil as well as criminal cases. He has appeared before Honorable High Court in many reported and unreported cases. He is also working as a panel advocate for many institutions at High Court, Aurangabad. He has wide experience to conduct a variety of litigations before the subordinate courts as well, including the tribunals and quasi-judicial authorities. So this is what vast kind of experience he is having. And apart from that, the beauty with his personality is that he is alumnus of this college. He is a very student of this college. He is the product of this college. And in that connection, we requested him to deliver a webinar on this topic. So once again, with this introduction, I would be concluding the kind of inaugural kind of introduction. And what I said, there is a message from Honorable Principal that he will be joining in between. He has very happily agreed that the whole time should be devoted for the speech of Advocate Veer sir. And before I conclude and invite Advocate Veer sir, there is a request to all the students to enroll their attendance in the chat box with their names as well as their roll numbers and whatever the class they are having. If they don't have, if the students of first year are there, they are exempted from putting their roll number. They can just put their names and their class. That is enough. So now, once again, I welcome Honorable Advocate Srikant Veer sir, and I request on behalf of the college to deliver his lecture on the topic law of writs provided under the Constitution of India. Veer sir, please.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Makne sir. And,
yes, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Wasim Khan sir is there. All
Khan
are
sir,
there.
Khan sir, More sir. I thank you, all of you, for giving this little opportunity for this little one to introduce myself on the given topic, law of writs provided under the Constitution of India. Sir, are you getting my clear voice? Just clarification.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
Law of writs provided under the Constitution of India is concerned. First of all, we have to see the origin of the writ. We found the origin of writ in the English law in United Kingdom, where the king was ordering something for the welfare of the people. The Britishers came here and they have ruled our country, and so the system of this judicial administration of system came here in India, and it has been regularized. So its origin is in we found in English law, and later on we have get it from the Constitution of India, as the Constitution of India came into force in 1950, and thereafter the we found some fundamental rights are given to the citizens of India, and to enforcement of these fundamental rights and other rights, those are statutory rights and other rights. For enforcement of these rights, the remedy is given to citizens of India by way of writ petitions provided under Article 226 and Article 32 of the Constitution of India. Chapter 3, Part 3 of the Constitution of India has provided some fundamental rights to the citizens of India, and that runs from Article 14 to Article 32. So far as Article 12 is concerned, it has provided the definition of the state, and Article 13 has provided that the state cannot make law contrary to the fundamental rights provided to the citizens of India. So from 14 and onwards, the fundamental rights are being provided to the citizens. Those are equality before law, right to freedom, Article 20, 21, 20 is in regard to double jeopardy, 21 is in respect of the right to life and liberty. As such, fundamental rights are being provided. And Part 4 of the Constitution has provided the directive principles of the state policy, that some directive principles of state policy are not enforceable, but they are in the nature of instruction to the government to act for the welfare of the people, that economic sources of this country should not be in the hands of few persons, and there should be resources to all kinds of section of the society. So fundamental rights are being provided, and for enforcement of these fundamental rights, remedy is provided under Article 226 for the High Court to seek the various writs, and Article 32 before the Supreme Court for enforcement of these fundamental rights. So far as Article 32 is concerned, that itself is made a fundamental right for fundamental right as a remedy to approach before the Honorable Apex Court and to seek the enforcement of the fundamental rights. And so far as the writs provided under 226 and Article 32 are concerned, these are 5 types of the writ. First one is writ of mandamus. Mandamus means if while implementing the law, the rights are being, the authority are having duty to act in accordance with law, and if there is a failure on the part of the any authority, that is the state or instrumentality of the state, if that authority failed to perform its duty, in case of mandamus, there should be an obligation on the authority to act in accordance with law. If there has been failure on the part of the authority to perform its duty in accordance with law, in such situation, we can seek the recourse of writ of mandamus for directing that authority to act in accordance with law. When there is a violation of fundamental rights, the person is having 2 choices, whether to approach before the High Court for enforcement of his right under Article 226 or to approach before the Honorable Apex Court under Article 32. So sweet choice in law only given in respect of fundamental rights. So far as this writ of mandamus is concerned, all writ jurisdiction provided toward the court and before the High Court and Supreme Court is in discretionary natures. And if some alternate remedy are being available, in such situation, this prerogative, this is the special powers is given to the court that this is discretionary jurisdiction, and for enforcement of that writ jurisdiction, and in case of mandamus, the person has to first of all ask the justice before the concerned authority, and if justice is not given, in that situation, writ of mandamus lies, and it is for enforcement before the High Court. The fundamental rights and other rights can also be enforced. So far as other rights means, some rights flows from the statute, some flows from the governmental policy decisions, GRs, notification, ordinance, and if some such rights are flowing from such ordinance and statutory authority, though it may not be a fundamental, sometimes even contractual rights can also be enforced under Article 226 before the High Court. So in mandamus, we seek for the enforcement of this fundamental right as well as other rights, seeking direction from the court to act in accordance with law. And so far as other aspect of the petition that can be clubbed together and can be introduced in a later portion, I will explain that alternate remedy and all these aspects. So in case of seeking of mandamus, there should be a right to the person, that may be fundamental right, other rights. But if you want to approach under Article 32 before the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court is having limited jurisdiction to the extent of enforcement of fundamental rights. But the High Court has given very vast jurisdiction for the protection of fundamental rights and other rights also. Other rights means, I have explained that these rights which are flowing from the statute, ordinance, GR, and others, these rights can be protected by way of writ provided under Article 226. So in brief, the writ of mandamus means if any authority is failed to perform its duty in accordance with law, and if means in this case, there should be an obligation on the part of authority to perform its duty. If there is a failure in such situation, we can seek enforcement of that right by way of Article 226. And if it is in regard to 32, a fundamental right, we can seek even from the Honorable Apex Court. So in short, mandamus means a written command order given by the court to the authority to act in accordance with law. Next one is writ of certiorari. And I want to give one trick, that in case of writ of mandamus, we should have to make a finger in such a way that if any authority is not acting in accordance with law, that we can make the fingers toward that authority. And this is the simple trick. Mandamus means you can show this finger to act in accordance with law. So far as next writ is concerned, that is the writ of certiorari. Now certiorari is in the nature of correction. when authority exceeded its jurisdiction or authority do not have any jurisdiction, or if any jurisdictional error is committed by any authority while functioning, and if that has been caused infringement of right or has caused the legal injury, person is aggrieved, in that situation, we can approach towards the concerned court and seek for enforcement of that right. And certiorari is in the nature of correction in nature. The scope of certiorari is widely explained by the Honorable Apex Court in reported judgment, that is the old judgment of 1955, that is the Kamath's case, Kamath versus Syed Ahmad case, in which the scope of writ of certiorari is provided, in which the Supreme Court has laid down some parameters that how the writ of certiorari is to be exercised, means authority exceeded its jurisdiction, acted in violation of principle of natural justice. Means there should be show cause notice and explanation. In that situation, only reason order should be passed. If such gross illegalities are being committed, in such situation, that order can be assailed before the High Court or Supreme Court under Article 226 or 32. But where there is a question in regard to fundamental rights, it can be approached before the Apex Court, and its enforcement can be sought by way of writ of certiorari. But that is by way of writ means appropriate writs is to be issued by the courts, and we have to pray for the such writs. Now, so in case of our, I want to give one trick, that in case of certiorari, we should have to, we always ask the order passed by the authority is illegal, it is arbitrary, gross injustice has been caused as it has exceeded jurisdiction, it do not acted within its parameter. In such situation, we seek the writ of certiorari. Certiorari, one jurisdiction is provided to the High Court under Article 227, that is the power of superintendence. That is also important articles for seeking writ of certiorari. In power of superintendence means all the subordinate courts and authority, quasi-judicial authorities are under the supervision of the High Court, and certiorari writs lies under Article 226 under the extraordinary jurisdiction and also under the supervisory jurisdiction provided under Article 227 of the Constitution of India. Some powers provided under Article 227 are similar to Article 226. In case of Article 226, we seek the enforcement of rights, but the writ of certiorari can be sought even under Article 227, that is the power of superintendence provided to the High Court, which is all the subordinate court and authorities are under the supervision of High Court. Now, third writ, that is in so in case of writ of certiorari, we have to express our hand as such that this is in respect of quashing of the illegal order passed by the authority. That is, it is exceeded its jurisdiction, acted without jurisdiction, there is a gross violation of principle of natural justice, and in all writ there should be aggrieved person, and their rights are being infringed by such act. Then in such situation we can approach under Article 226, under Article 32, and while seeking the 226, even you can take the help of Article 227 provided under the Constitution of India. Now, third writ is a quo warranto. Quo warranto means the court is having authority, authority, power to ask the authority that under what provisions of law the public office is occupied by somebody else. Means quo warranto generally asked by the in practice, again in service matter, in election matter, some constitutional posts are being held. If that posts are being held without qualification, and if such public office is occupied illegally, in such situation, writ can be quo warranto writ is sought by the for the enforcement of that right. But there should not be alternate remedy. Even alternate remedy is not bar for the exercise of the writ jurisdiction. So in short, the quo warranto means our finger should be as like this, that under what authority of law the office of public is occupied by the concerned person. Now, generally, in 2003, Jayalalitha's case, the writ of quo warranto is widely explained, and we can take the recourse of that judgment for other clarification. Now, we have seen 3 writs, that is mandamus, certiorari, quo warranto. Now, 4th writ is of prohibition. When the authority is functioning and the authority do not have jurisdiction, in such situation, we can seek the recourse of writ of prohibition, that the authority do not have jurisdiction and still that authority is deciding something which is contrary to the law. In such situation, we can ask for the writ of prohibition and stop the illegal functioning of that authority. Now, next one writ is a most important writ, writ of habeas corpus. In writ petition also, there are 2 types of writ petitions. For administrative side, the High Court has made High Court appellate side rules. Supreme Court has its special rules for regulation of the proceedings filed before them. For High Court, there are the High Court appellate side rules, in which the writs petition, when it is filed for the civil sides, it has been titled as a writ petition only. But when it is filed for the criminal sides, when there is a law pertains to criminal administration of justice is involved, we use the title to the criminal writ petitions. And in criminal writ petitions, the writ of habeas corpus is sought where the person is illegally detained, unauthorized detained. In such situation, we ask the writ of habeas corpus. Generally, the writ of habeas corpus demanded before the High Court in many child custody matter, matrimonial matters, where there is an unlawful detention. Article 20 and Article 21, this writ pertains to these fundamental rights. And writ of habeas corpus can be sought multiple occasions. The law of res judicata is not applicable to the extent of writ of habeas corpus, but there should be clarification in respect of all points. The fact should we should not suppress any material fact from the honorable courts while seeking all writs. But in case of habeas corpus, when we seek the multiple occasions writ of habeas corpus cause of actions, in such situation, it is expected that you should come before the court with clean hands, expressing, pointing out all the factual aspects. So this is the command order given by the court for the directing the person to produce that of writ of habeas corpus. So in sum and substance, these are the 5 writs, that writ of mandamus, certiorari, quo warranto, prohibition. In case of prohibition, we have to show our hand as like this, and under the writ of habeas corpus, in case we have to say our hand that to produce that person who is illegally detained by the authority. Means the life and liberty provided under the Constitution of India is has much importance, and if such illegal detention, in that situation, even we can seek the monetary relief also again in that case also. And rights provided under Article 21, life and liberty, is given by the Constitution, but same are also the bond rights given to the persons. And these are in sum and substance, these are the 5 writs. Now, in case of writ jurisdiction, Article 12 and Article 13 plays very important roles. That Article 12 provided the concept of state. Generally, we file the writ against the state or instrumentality of the state. Even in some cases, writ also lies against the private body also, when that private body has been imposed with certain public duty, and if that private body is not discharging that public duty, in such exceptional cases we can seek even the writ against the private body also, when there is aid to the government, and we can try to bring that institution in the clutches of instrumentality of the states. Various organizations, various bodies, local authority, Supreme Court has decided bodies also as a state or instrumentality of the state, and writs are issued against it. In one of the case, BCCI, Board of Control of Cricket, was had some issue was arose before the Honorable Apex Court. The Apex Court stated that, observed that this body is not means managerially, administrative, financially controlled. If there is a control of that institution is in the hand of government, in such situation we can see that it is an instrumentality of the state, and writ can be issued against said authority. It cannot have the obstacle for the filing of writ for the enforcement against the state. But when we file the petition under Article 226 before the High Court, we have to see against whom we are seeking the writ, that other party are coming in the clutches of the state, instrumentality of the state. So the state means Union of India and state government. So subject the where our rights are being infringed, we can seek its enforcement against the appropriate government from the court. So in short, writ means command order issued by the court for enforcement of that right. So all these concept of state and instrumentality of the state, we should have to consider the aspect of that is administration, financial control, managerial type of control. If they all village panchayat, panchayat samiti, Jilla Parishad, municipal corporation, municipal councils, all these electricity board, corporation, many corporation, if it's financially and being controlled by the state, it can be said that it is instrumentality, and the concerned body in accordance with the case. So time to time, whenever the questions comes before the court has decided whether the concerned institution is an instrumentality of the state or not. In such situation, Ajia Hasia's case, that is also an important case, means in which the pervasive control of the state is considered. A large number of bodies are held as a state. Article 13, I have explained that so far as Article 13 is concerned, state shall not make any law contrary to the fundamental rights provided under Chapter 3 of the Constitution of India. As such, bar is provided for the making of law. There is one judgment, that is Keshwanand, well-known judgment, everybody knows that, Keshwanand Bharti's case, in which this is from Kerala states. Keshwanand Bharti was chief of one trust, and some lands were occupied, some land bill came into force in Kerala, in which 7 versus 6 judges have ruled that the directive principles and fundamental rights are complementary and supplementary to each other, and the scope of amendment to the government is explained that it cannot amend the basic structure of the Constitution of India. So next question arises that who can file the writ petition? The well-known Latin maxim that UBGS IBI remedium means where there is a right, there is a remedy. As in Article 32 in fundamental right, which are provided under Article 32 under Part 3 of Constitution. Article 32, which is in the remedial nature, itself is a fundamental right to file the writ petition and seek the enforcement of fundamental rights if it is enforced. So there can a person whose rights are being affected, and if that person is aggrieved in accordance with law, he can seek the appropriate writ before the concerned court. And so the concerned person must be file the writ petitions. In case of habeas corpus writ petition, the mother, father, or affected persons, or even next friend can also file the writ petition. But in case of other writ petitions, the concerned aggrieved and whose injury, whose legal rights are being affected, such person has to file the writ petition for enforcement of his right, and totally stranger person cannot file such a writ petition. But in exceptional, it has exception for the writ of habeas corpus. In case of writ of habeas corpus, the relatives, even concerned persons, can file the writ of habeas corpus. But in case of other, the person affected persons, aggrieved persons has to seek the recourse of writ remedy. And so far as in law of torts, we have seen two cases, one Ashby versus White and Gloucester Grammar Schools, that is damnum sine injuria and injuria sine damnum. These two basic cases to understand for filing of the writs are very important. There should be a damage and there should be a why I am explaining, because there is a distinction between aggrieved persons and whose rights are being infringed. So there should be two concepts. Their rights must have been violated, and second one, there should be aggrieved person. So sometimes person feels that aggrieved means his rights are affected. Sometimes rights may be affected, but he may not be aggrieved. Sometimes he may be aggrieved, but his rights are not affected. So there should be a combination that aggrieved person and his rights are should have been affected. In such situation, writ can be issued. Now, these I have explained all this aspect in respect of protection of fundamental rights, other rights as an individual, but these rights can be enforced by way of public interest litigation in the interest of large number of the peoples, of some downtrodden. Even the courts, that is the Supreme Court, High Court, has given the has jurisdiction that sumo to take the recourses of this violation of the fundamental rights, other rights, fundamental rights, and can seek the enforcement of these rights. But there was some abuse of public interest litigation by some persons, and therefore in 2010 the Supreme Court has given some guidelines, that is in case of the state of Uttarakhand versus Balwant Singh Chauhan. In that case, the Supreme Court has given guidelines to all the high courts to frame the rules so as to curtail the frivolous public interest litigations, and procedure is changed since 2010 as some rules are being came into force, and we have to follow the rules and have to give some affidavits before the concerned court while filing the public interest litigation when the petitions are being filed for the enforcement of fundamental rights or other rights before the High Court. So our Bombay High Court has also framed the rules for the filing of public interest litigations, and everybody is following the same. The Supreme Court, High Court has even taken the news flashed in the newspaper or some news coming from the TV channels, and by way of other aspects, some letters are being written, some representations are being written by the student and socially spirited persons in respect of violation of fundamental rights or the other rights, that High Court has, without means by excluding all the rules of the procedural aspect, have taken into consideration this aspect for the welfare of the peoples, for the welfare of the states, and has given the appropriate direction for the enforcement of the fundamental rights of the disadvantaged citizens of this society. In case of bonded laborers, prisoners, environmental issues, and child labor matters, the High Court has sumoto, Supreme Court, High Court has sumoto entertained with PILs and has given the appropriate direction against the concerned authority. Now, question arises whether to file these petitions whether certain limitations are being provided. You know, all of you, that law of limitation is provided in separate enactment. So law of limitation is concerned generally in High Court or Supreme Court. It has original jurisdiction as well as appellate jurisdiction. When the writs are being provided under Article 226, generally it is in original jurisdiction. But when matters coming from the subordinate courts, means if illegal orders are being passed, in such situation, the appellate side jurisdictions are being provided. In appellate side jurisdiction, maximum 90 days limitations are being provided. For writ remedies, no limitation is provided, but the exercise of the person whose law helps to the vigilant, the persons whose rights are being affected, has to immediately approach towards the concerned court for the enforcement of for enforcement of that rights. So limitation are not provided for the enforcement of these fundamental rights or statutory rights, but person should be diligent that some act may not be happen, that some rights were acquired to some other persons. In such situation, earliest we have to approach the concerned court for the enforcement of these rights. Even if there is a delay or laches, we have to explain before the court that some delay is caused, and to advance the substantial justice to the parties, the delay laches may be condoned and writ can be issued, and court is having power to condone the delay and laches. Now, for writ jurisdiction, some obstacles, I say enemy of writ jurisdiction is the alternate remedy. Alternate, if the person is having provided a forum in the law when there is a statutory rights, if the person has been provided a forum in accordance with law for enforcement of that statutory right or other right, in such situation, generally the High Court may not entertain the writ petitions for the availability of the alternate remedy. In such situation, you have to give the reasons that why he don't want to exercise that alternate remedy provided under the statute. If we give the genuine and proper reason for not availing the alternate remedy, it is not bar for the High Court for that alternate remedy is available, and therefore it should stay in its hand. It has vast jurisdiction, but it is a self-restraint group, and law of writs, that is the prerogative writs, are the special powers and discretion of the courts. If we made the room towards the court for discretion of jurisdiction in appropriate cases, such cases are being entertained, though there may be alternate remedy. If the alternate remedy is not suitable in such situation, the rule of alternate remedy can be relaxed. It is the self-restraint rule of the High Court. Now, the question arises, where to file the writ petitions, territorial jurisdiction. So far as territorial jurisdiction of the person where he is residing, he can file the writ petition at the said place. The High Court is having jurisdiction to exercise its writ power all over the country against that authority. And the Honorable Apex, where person is residing within the jurisdiction, section 20 of CPC, that is provided the territorial jurisdiction for filing of the civil suit. As like the person who is residing within the jurisdiction of the High Court, in such court, he can file the writ petitions for the enforcement of that his rights. But where the alternate remedy are being provided, in such situation, court can, if court find that the alternate remedy is available and it is suitable, sometimes court relegate the parties to approach the concerned authority for the enforcement of his rights. I, so far as the CPC evidence, that is strictly not applicable to the writ jurisdiction, and delay latches can be conducted. Now, while drafting the writ petitions, everybody is having a skill, but generally what I adopt in case of writ petitions, just I want to explain this aspect also. Drafting of the writ petition is a skill of everybody. Everybody, even some judges also are also having, while drafting the judgments, he can draft in his own way. But in case of drafting of writ petitions, in first para, if we give what we are asking, that will be better for that litigations. That if we directly in first para says what they are asking, which writ are asking, it is always better. And in second para, we have to give the explanation in respect of parties, that is, who is petitioner, who is respondent, and latter facts of the case. And last para should be brief on the lawful aspect of the petition, and thereafter we have to explain delay, latches, and later on prayer clause, verification, and all these aspects are. Now, so far as locus standi to file the petition is concerned, the person whose rights are being affected is having locus to file the petitions. Totally stranger persons is not having right to file such petitions. But in case of habeas corpus, the relatives can approach, can file the petitions. So in sum and substance, these are the 5 writs are being provided under under the Constitution of India. That is, just I will revise this, that writ of, first one is writ of mandamus, second is certiorari, and third one is quo warranto, fourth is prohibition, and fifth is habeas corpus. These are the 5 writs, and for enforcement of these rights, we have remedy under Article 226 and Article 32 for the, but the Honorable Apex Court is having limited jurisdiction to the extent of enforcement of fundamental rights, whereas the High Court is having wider jurisdiction than the Supreme Court for the enforcement of fundamental rights as well as other rights. Other rights means those rights which are flowing from the statute, ordinance, government policy decisions, and alternate remedy is no bar. It is a self-restraint rule, and the person whose rights are being affected, that has to approach immediately. Law of delay and latches, that also can be condoned. And in case of public interest litigation, court is having wider jurisdiction to issue the appropriate directions, but some rules are being framed in 2010 to curtail the frivolous litigation. That public interest litigation should be a social interest litigation. It should not be publicity interest litigations. And therefore, the guidelines which are being provided by the Honorable Apex Court in case of Uttarakhand state of Uttarakhand versus Chauhan's case, and in which now guidelines which are being framed, those are being implementing. Our Bombay High Court is a very oldest High Court. Earlier in English law, for rule to maintain the rule of administration of justice, the first Supreme Court was established at Calcutta. Thereafter, Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay. Three Supreme Courts were established, and thereafter, after the Constitution came into force, these are being continued. So our Bombay High Court is having vast history, and law of writs is the main jurisdiction, main powers provided towards the court for the enforcement of fundamental rights and other rights. So in brief, this is very vast subject, but I tried to cover this aspect by maintaining my routine work to as it is. So if we will stop here on this subject, now we can lead towards the questionnaire. If anybody is having any question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for putting the whole law of writs in a nice way. And you have, it was new for us to use the body language in order to understand what kind of writs are there, like this one, like that. So these are the kind of essential elements you have made us to understand how the writs could be understood. And thank you for that. So friends, dear students, if you are having any kind of question, you put in the chat box so that we can discuss. There is a question, sir. Yeah. Ram Nivrutti Sawant, he has asked the question in the chat box. Are there any provisions of assurance to provide security protection for the petitioners, like those who file PIL under these writs by the respected honorable courts? If anybody is filing PIL, does such a person gets the protection from honorable court?
No, he can file the appropriate application before the concerned police authority, asking for the security, and he can point out the concerned court that such and such there is a threat, but court cannot believe on his threat. The person has to point out the concerned police station, concerned authorities, and wisdom of that authority cannot be disbelieved and cannot be appropriate, and he can take the special point out this court to point out this aspect to the court that such and such things are being happen with him, and if such applications are made before the concerned court, he can file even the separate petition. And if court founds it is suitable for to give such direction, court may think, but some aspect has to decide by the courts. But where for the in case of public interest litigations, some rules are being framed. I am repeating that aspect, that when public interest litigations are being examples, there are some examples that has been misused, and it should not be a publicity litigations. Therefore, some affidavits are being taken that to make some deposits and other aspects. But whenever applications are moved before the concerned authority, the authority can take its own cognizance, and their wisdom cannot be disputed.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Basically, the question, it was not related with the PIL, but the person who has filed the PIL. So ordinary course of business is there for the courts and the criminal administration of justice. They have to handle that kind of case. And PIL will be handled by the honorable courts. If anybody is having another question, please put in the box. प्रश्न आहे का कुणाला आणखी? मोकळेपणाने विचारा. वकील साहेब आपल्या प्रश्नांचं उत्तर देण्याचा प्रयत्न करतील, आपल्या प्रश्नांचे निराकरण सुद्धा करण्याचा प्रयत्न करतील. येस, प्रश्न असतील तर विचारावा. वी आर वेटिंग इन द चॅट बॉक्स. येस सर. एक प्रश्न असा आहे सर, पठाण साहेब कडनं.
Yes, yes, yes.
Can a compensation be granted by the court after illegal detention of a person by the
Yes,
state?
yes, yes, yes. We should have to pray in the petition itself.
Okay, okay. Okay, okay.
There are numerous judgment on this point that for illegal detention, compensation is awarded by the court.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, thank you, sir. आणखी काही प्रश्न असेल ते विचारा, म्हणजे आपल्याला वेळेचा सदुपयोग करता येईल. सरांनी खूप चांगल्या पद्धतीने त्या विषय समजून दिलेला आहे आपल्याला. म्हणजे जो आपण वर्गामध्ये शिकला त्याच्यापेक्षा जो प्रॅक्टिकल स्वरूप त्याचं कसं असतं ते सांगण्याचा प्रयत्न केलेला आहे. इज देयर एनी क्वेश्चन एनी मोर?
While filing the writ petitions,
Yes.
in office, some objections are being raised. That is in accordance with the High Court appellate side rules and Supreme Court rules are being provided. Whenever writ petitions are being filed and it is disposed of, in such situation, some letter on file for reviewing of the order passed by the concerned court. And in Supreme Court, after review, one remedy is given, that is of curative petitions. There is difference between the curative petitions and review petition. In case of the High Court, there is no curative petitions, but in case of Supreme Court, there is remedy of curative petitions also, and it do not have limitations. But in case of review petitions, it goes before the same judges, and in case of curative petition before the Supreme Court, it goes before even another benches also.
Okay, okay, sir. We are also having another question by Mr. Ajay.
Can
a case, yes, transferable from one court to another?
In case of CPC, some provision, that is section 24, 25 are being made for transfer of cases. In matrimonial cases, these remedy are being asked by the parties for transfer of cases from one court to another court. But this is not in respect of in respect of fundamental rights and writ jurisdictions. There cannot be a question for transfer from one case to one court to another court. Fundamental 26 concern High Court is having given for enforcement of that rights. After High Court, in regard to section of material rights, person can by new grounds even approach, later on can approach to the Supreme Court under Article 32. There is no bar for filing of writ petition before the Supreme Court, letter of dismissal of by the High Courts.
Okay, okay, thank you, sir. Any more question, please? If you have the question, please do ask the question. Okay, okay. Seems that the students are very happy with your explanation, so they don't have that much questions. Anyway, sir,
What is
thank you.
court fee regarding the writ?
What is, sir?
What is court fee
Yes, sir.
regarding to writ?
Yes, 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 yes.
One question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. By Yasser Siddiqui. Yes, sir.
When we have filed the writ petition under Article 226, the court fees is to 125. But if you in that writ petition, we should not mention any article. That is Article 14, 16, 70. If you incorporate Article 14, 16, 15, or anything else, then you have to pay 250 rupees.
Okay, okay.
But if you file the petition exclusively under Article 226 for direction, in such situation, court fees is 125 rupees, and for Vakil Patra, 15 rupees.
Okay, okay. Okay, this is really a new thing for all of us. Okay, what exactly the court fees is.
But when it is filed 226 coupled with all other articles, then
Yes.
250.
Yes.
When it is also under Article 227, Couple with 226, we have to pay 250 rupees.
Yeah, okay, sir. Thank you. Any more question? If you have the question, please. So it is not to waste the time because our resource person is a very engaged kind of person.
And in case of PIL,
Huh.
though court fees is 250 rupees, but court in its discretion directs the parties to deposit certain amount to check his bona fides. And if it is filed frivolously, the court imposes heavy cost.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now we have had a very nice session of yours, and you have highlighted each and every aspect of REITs and the REIT jurisdiction. And in the context of that, I think there is another question is there. Dnyaneshwar Parde has asked the question, can NGO file a REIT petition?
Yes, NGO can file the REIT petitions.
Yes. Actually, sir has already answered in the form of PIL. PILs could be instituted with the help of the NGOs. NGOs can have option for that because they are the public spirited person.
NGO, even private institution can also file REIT petition for enforcement of certain public duty against some public corporation, public authority.
Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Now I request, if you are having questions, please, I will give 1 minute for you to put in the chat box so that we can conclude the session. फक्त 1 मिनिटाच्या आत तुम्हाला ज्यांचे प्रश्न असतील ते घेण्यात येतील, नंतर आपल्याला बंद करायचं आहे चॅट बॉक्स, कारण काय त्याला मर्यादा आहेत काही वेळेला. अजित शेख sir has asked one question. Bar Council examination after all law students compulsory 6-month training in High Court and Supreme Court visit training. अजीज, आपका सवाल हम ये समझना चाहते थे कि रेट पिटिशन जो टॉपिक सर ने आज डिलीवर किया है उससे अगर कोई मेल खाता हो तो आप सवाल पूछिए. थोड़ा सा दूसरा लग रहा है ये. ठीक आहे सर, तुमचं काही म्हणणं असेल त्याच्याबद्दल तुम्ही बिलकुल म्हणू शकता. जरी विषयांतर झालं तरी समजा एक पॉसिबल झालं तर तुम्हाला एक्झामच्या संदर्भामध्ये ट्रेनिंग वगैरे आहे.
Bar Council examination after all law students compulsory 6-month training in High Court and Supreme Court visit training. That is related to institution.
Yes, that is related to institution. बरोबर आहे ते. Now I request my colleague Dr. Gyanendra Phuldalke sir to conclude today's webinar.
I'm audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are audible, sir. Sir, if possible, can we take one question? Last question, sir. One request. Sir, one request. Yes. You please.
If foreigner, in respect of writ of habeas corpus, he can file, but in respect of other writ petitions, he cannot.
Not a citizen.
He is not a citizen. He do not have such right. But in respect of in respect of Article 21, he can file writ petition.
Yes. Thank you, sir. So now we'll conclude the session. I request and invite Dr. Gyanendra Phuldalke sir to conclude the session by giving vote of thanks. Dr. Phuldalke sir, please. Sir, your audio, please.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Advocate Shrikant Veer, sir. Okay. Hello.
Please, sir. Sir, some audio issue is there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, now I am audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Advocate Shrikant Veer, sir, has given a very excellent information on the writ jurisdiction of High Court. He has explained very minutely and each and every aspect of writ jurisdiction and how to use it, and it in a very lucid manner. Okay, so now it is the last part of our this webinar. I am very, very thankful to our president for today's webinar, Dr. V.M. More sir. Then I am very much thankful to Advocate Shrikant Veer sir, Bombay High Court bench at Aurangabad, who has nicely delivered a lecture on the writ and jurisdiction under Indian Constitution. Then I am very thankful to coordinator of this function, Dr. Vijay Maknikar sir. And then I'm also very thankful to technical team for this coordinators, Dr. Wasim Khan sir and Dr. Kashinath Neherkar sir. And lastly, but they are very important, the students of our college who has participated in this webinar and asked very nice questions to Advocate Shrikant Veer sir. Once again, I am very thankful to Shrikant Veer sir for being a part of this webinar. And with this, with the prior permission of chair, I declare that this webinar is over. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.